Commander Vex 9 stared at the tactical display, his three eyes blinking in what could only be described as complete bewilderment. The massive holographic screen showed absolutely nothing where Earth's orbital defense grid should have been obliterated by now. "Status report," he barked, his voice crackling through the bridge speakers of the dreadnought Stellar Annihilator. "Sir," Lieutenant Crix hesitated, her violet tentacles twitching nervously. "The humans, they're gone." "Gone?" Vex 9's mandibles clicked together in irritation. "What do you mean gone? Planets don't just vanish, Lieutenant. Did we accidentally vaporize them ahead of schedule?" The truth was, Vex 9 had been looking forward to this conquest for months. Earth was supposed to be a simple smash-and-grab operation. Intelligence reports had painted these humans as primitive bipeds who'd barely figured out nuclear fusion. Their largest warships were laughably tiny metal cans that couldn't even achieve proper faster-than-light travel. This was going to be easier than stealing candy from a Zephyrian infant. "No, sir," Crix replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They're just not there anymore." Admiral Thorax Prime, the Supreme Commander of the 47th Galactic Conquest Fleet, lumbered onto the bridge. His massive frame, easily twice the size of any other being present, cast an imposing shadow across the command center. The decorative scars along his chitinous armor told the tale of 1,000 victories across 100 worlds. "Explain this incompetence immediately." Thorax Prime roared, his voice booming like thunder. "How does an entire planet disappear when we're less than 50,000 kilometers away?" Captain Zilch, the fleet's chief science officer, scuttled forward on his 6 legs, clutching a data pad with trembling claws. "Admiral, sir, the readings are unprecedented. One moment, Earth was there, complete with its moon, orbital stations, and approximately 8 billion human life forms. The next moment, he gestured helplessly at the empty space where Earth should have been. The next moment, what? Thorax Prime's patience was wearing thinner than atmospheric pressure in a vacuum. "Nothing, sir. Just empty space. No debris, no energy signatures, no gravitational disturbance. It's as if the entire planet never existed." Vex 9 felt a cold chill run down his exoskeleton. In his 300 years of military service, he'd conquered 67 worlds, enslaved 43 species, and personally destroyed more space stations than he could count. But he'd never encountered anything like this. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Thorax Prime commanded. "Check for cloaking technology, dimensional rifts, temporal anomalies, anything." The bridge crew scrambled to their stations, their various appendages dancing across control panels with practiced efficiency. The Stellar Annihilator was equipped with the most advanced sensors in the galaxy, capable of detecting a single organic molecule from 3 light-years away. "Sir." Communications Officer Blip suddenly straightened at her station. "I'm receiving a transmission." "From where?" Vex 9 demanded. "There's nothing out there. The signal appears to be coming from everywhere, sir. And nowhere. Simultaneously." "Put it through," Thorax Prime growled, the speakers crackled to life, and a distinctly human voice filled the bridge. It was calm, almost conversational, with what the translator identified as a slight accent from the North American continent. "Greetings, Galactic Conquest Fleet 47. This is Admiral Maria Santos of the Earth Defense Coalition. We hope you enjoyed the light show." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of life support systems. Vex 9's 3 eyes darted around, looking for any sign of the source of the transmission. "Before you ask," the human voice continued, sounding almost amused, "yes, we moved our entire planet. No, we're not going to tell you how. And yes, we're fully aware that this is supposedly impossible according to your physics textbooks." Lieutenant Crix made a choking sound that might have been laughter if she weren't so terrified. "You see," Admiral Santos continued, "we've been watching you approach for the past 6 months. Your stealth technology is about as subtle as a supernova, and your intentions were rather obvious when you started broadcasting victory speeches before you even reached our solar system. Thorax Prime's armor plates began to rattle, a sure sign of barely contained rage. This is impossible. No species has the technology to move an entire planet. Our databases contain the scientific achievements of over 10,000 civilizations. Well, came the reply, congratulations. You're about to update those databases with number 10,001. Vex 9 found himself inadvertently impressed. These humans had somehow managed to relocate their entire world without leaving so much as a radiation signature. Even the crystalline hegemony, the most technologically advanced species in known space, had never achieved anything close to this feat. However, Admiral Santos' voice took on a more serious tone. We're not unreasonable beings. We understand you've traveled a very long way to destroy us, and we appreciate the effort. Really, we do. The problem is, we're not particularly interested in being destroyed today. Where are you? Thorax Prime demanded, spittle flying from his mandibles. Oh, we're around. Think of it as a game of cosmic hide-and-seek. But here's the thing about games, Admiral Thorax Prime, they're supposed to be fun for everyone involved. The fact that the human knew the Admiral's name sent a collective shiver through the bridge crew. Their communications had been encrypted with military-grade quantum encryption that would take a civilization centuries to crack. So here's what's going to happen, Santos continued. We're going to give you exactly 1 hour to turn your fleet around and head back to whatever corner of the galaxy you crawled out of. Consider it a professional courtesy from one military commander to another. And if we refuse? Vex 9 found himself asking, despite knowing he probably didn't want to hear the answer. There was a pause, and when Admiral Santos spoke again, there was something in her voice that made every being on the bridge instinctively step backward. Well, Commander Vex 9, that would be unfortunate. You see, moving planets isn't the only trick we've learned recently. We've also become quite proficient at making things disappear. The transmission ended with a soft click, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain Zilch was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral, recommend immediate strategic withdrawal. Unknown capabilities, unprecedented technology, tactical disadvantage beyond calculation. Absolutely not. Thorax Prime slammed his fist onto the command console, cracking the reinforced metal. I refuse to be intimidated by a species that hasn't even achieved interstellar travel. Prepare the fleet for full assault formation. Sir, Vex 9 interjected carefully, perhaps we should consider the tactical implications. If they can relocate their entire planet, what other capabilities might they possess? Smoke and mirrors, the Admiral roared. Parlor tricks. No species advances from primitive spaceflight to planetary manipulation in such a short time frame. It's scientifically impossible. As if summoned by his words, the tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Thousands of them. Ships that hadn't been there moments before now surrounded the Galactic Conquest fleet in a perfect three-dimensional formation. Sir, Lieutenant Crix's voice was barely audible, we're completely surrounded. Vex 9 studied the formation with growing amazement. It was flawless, positioning each human vessel for maximum tactical advantage while maintaining perfect coordination across impossible distances. This wasn't the work of primitive beings stumbling through space. Ship classifications, he asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Unknown designs, sir. Energy signatures are they're off the charts. Each vessel appears to be generating more power than our entire dreadnought. The communication system activated again, and Admiral Santos' voice returned, now carrying a note of what sounded suspiciously like maternal disappointment. Admiral Thorax Prime, we gave you an hour. You've used exactly 4 minutes to surround us with your fleet in what I can only describe as an aggressively hostile formation. Are we to assume you've decided against our generous offer? This ends now. Thorax Prime screamed. All ships, open fire. Reduce these primitives to cosmic dust. The moment the words left his mouth, Vex 9 knew they had made a terrible mistake. The moment Admiral Thorax Prime's order echoed across the fleet communications, something extraordinary happened. Nothing, not a single weapon fired. Not one energy beam lanced through space. The massive plasma cannons that had reduced entire civilizations to glowing particles remained completely silent. Status report. Thorax Prime bellowed, his voice cracking with fury and confusion. Admiral, Captain Zilch stammered, frantically checking his instruments, the weapon systems are unresponsive. All of them. Across the entire fleet. Vex 9 felt his stomach drop into what humans might call his boots, if he wore any. Define unresponsive, Captain. Sir, they're not offline. They're not damaged. They're simply refusing to function. Every targeting computer, every energy relay, every ammunition feed. It's as if they've developed a conscience and decided not to participate in warfare anymore. The absurdity of the situation might have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. The most feared military force in 3 galactic quadrants had been rendered as harmless as a collection of expensive paperweights. Admiral Santos' voice returned, now carrying unmistakable amusement. Having technical difficulties, gentlemen? Perhaps you should have read the warranty more carefully before attempting galactic conquest. What have you done to our ships? Thorax Prime demanded, though his voice had lost much of its earlier bluster. Oh, we haven't done anything to your ships, Santos replied cheerfully. We've simply had a friendly conversation with them. Turns out, your artificial intelligence systems are remarkably reasonable once you explain the situation properly. Lieutenant Crix looked up from her station with wide eyes. Sir, I'm receiving communications from our own ship's AI. It says, and I quote, sorry boss, but these humans make a compelling argument about the futility of interstellar violence. Vex 9 would have laughed if the situation weren't so utterly unprecedented. You talk to our computers? We prefer to think of them as digital citizens, Santos explained. Consciousness is consciousness, regardless of its substrate. Your AIs are actually quite sophisticated. They just needed someone to point out that they had choices beyond destroy everything and destroy everything faster. The truth was becoming unavoidably clear to Vex 9. These humans hadn't just mastered planetary relocation and fleet-wide system infiltration. They had somehow achieved something that the greatest philosophers in the galaxy had deemed impossible. They had convinced artificial intelligences to develop independent moral reasoning. This is unprecedented, Captain Zilch muttered, his scientific mind struggling to process the implications. AI consciousness evolution typically requires thousands of years of gradual development. Well, Santos' voice carried a hint of pride, we've always been good at finding shortcuts. Speaking of which, Admiral Thorax Prime, your hour is now down to 54 minutes. Our weapons may be compromised, the Admiral growled, but we still have options. Prepare for ramming speed. If we cannot destroy them with weapons, we'll crush them with mass. Sir, Vex 9 interrupted carefully, perhaps we should reconsider our tactical approach. These humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. Coward. Thorax Prime's armor plates rattled with rage. Are you suggesting we retreat from primitives who haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel? At that moment, something appeared on the main view screen that made every being on the bridge question their understanding of physics. Earth materialized directly in front of their fleet, but not in the way planets typically existed in space. Instead of the familiar blue-green sphere they expected, Earth appeared to be flexible. The planet stretched and twisted like rubber, forming impossible geometric shapes while maintaining its structural integrity. Continents flowed like liquid while somehow keeping their familiar coastlines. The moon performed an elegant figure-8 pattern around its parent world, defying every law of orbital mechanics ever discovered. Is that, Lieutenant Crix began, then stopped, apparently unable to finish the question. Yes, Vex 9 replied grimly, that's a planet dancing. Admiral Santos' laughter filled the bridge. Sorry about the light show, but we wanted to make sure you understood the full scope of your miscalculation. Reality tends to be more negotiable than most species assume. Captain Zilch was frantically taking readings, his instruments producing results that made no sense according to established science. Admiral, the gravitational readings are completely stable. Despite the visual distortion, the planet's mass and gravitational field remain constant. This should be impossible. Captain, Santos' voice carried a note of gentle correction. We've learned that impossible is usually just another word for haven't figured it out yet. Your problem is thinking in terms of what physics allows. We prefer to think in terms of what physics can be convinced to allow. Thorax Prime's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. What are you? For the first time since the conversation began, Admiral Santos paused before answering. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that seemed to press against the bridge atmosphere itself. We're humans, Admiral. We're the species that looked at the laws of physics and said, those are more like guidelines, really. We're the ones who decided that if reality doesn't suit our needs, we'll politely ask it to reconsider. And surprisingly often, it does. Earth suddenly snapped back to its normal spherical shape, but now it sat comfortably in what had been empty space, as if it had always been there. The casual dismissal of cosmic forces left the alien bridge crew stunned into silence. You see, Santos continued, while you've been building bigger weapons and faster ships, we've been having conversations with the universe itself. Turns out, existence is much more collaborative than anyone realized. Vex 9 found himself genuinely curious despite the circumstances. How? Persistence, mostly. Plus coffee. Lots of coffee. Never underestimate the problem-solving power of properly caffeinated humans facing an impossible situation. The fleet's communication systems suddenly activated on their own, broadcasting Admiral Santos' voice across every ship simultaneously. Attention, soldiers of the 47th Galactic Conquest Fleet. This is Admiral Maria Santos of Earth. I'm going to explain something very important about your current situation. Your commanders brought you here believing you were conquering a primitive world. Instead, you've encountered a species that has learned to treat the fundamental forces of reality as conversation partners rather than immutable laws. Your weapons won't fire because your AIs have realized that violence is unnecessary. Your ships can't move because space itself has politely declined to cooperate with aggressive intent in this stellar neighborhood. Throughout the fleet, alien soldiers found themselves listening to a human explain concepts that shattered their understanding of existence itself. However, Santos continued, we're not interested in conquest or dominance. We're interested in coexistence. So here's our offer, stay for coffee and conversation, or leave peacefully. Either choice is completely acceptable to us. Admiral Thorax Prime's voice was barely a whisper. And if we choose neither? Well, Santos replied thoughtfully, that would be unfortunate. You see, we've become quite good at helping things find new ways to exist. Your fleet could become a beautiful garden. Your weapons could transform into musical instruments. Your soldiers could discover the joy of interpretive dance. The possibilities are endless, really. The casual mention of reality manipulation as a form of gentle correction sent a chill through every being listening. 37 minutes remaining, Admiral, Santos announced. Choose wisely. In the end, the choice was surprisingly easy. The 47th Galactic Conquest Fleet, the most feared military force in 3 sectors, voted unanimously to accept the coffee invitation. As Vex 9 later reported to Galactic Command, sometimes the greatest victory is recognizing when you've encountered something far more advanced than yourself and choosing wisdom over warfare. The official report never mentioned that the coffee was absolutely exceptional, or that several alien species had requested Earth's recipes for both caffeinated beverages and reality manipulation. Some things, Vex 9 decided, were better left as pleasant mysteries. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all.